The day I won Best Actress, a hater leaked a video of me once walking around with a visibly pregnant belly. The venue erupted. Reporters swarmed in, all asking the same question. Anna, who is the father of the child? I turned and looked at Ethan, his face frozen in shock. For the first time, the man who was always composed and distant lost his control in public. I smiled and denied it calmly. I don't have a child. The moment Ethan left me behind for his childhood sweetheart, everything between us was already over. Chapter 1. Before stepping out of the car onto the red carpet, my manager reminded me again and again, if I ran into Chloe, pretend she wasn't there. Do not start another conflict. After all, Chloe's backer was Ethan. Most of the entertainment industry was under the control of the Sinclair family. There used to be a crude saying in the industry. If you wanted fame, sleep with Ethan. The words were vulgar, but not entirely untrue. Women who had even the slightest connection to him always seemed to rise effortlessly. Except me. I was the only one who had dated him openly and still ended up nearly blacklisted. Because I offended his precious childhood friend. For 6 years, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how much the public praised my acting, I never won a single award. Loss after loss wore down every sharp edge I had. I stopped sharing stages with Chloe. Every script she set her eyes on, I declined with an excuse about scheduling conflicts. Maybe my silent retreat finally worked. Or maybe she and Ethan were about to get married and didn't want bad luck around. Either way, this time they finally loosened their grip and let an award slip through their fingers to me. When my manager heard the news, she almost cried. Anna, she said, the hard days are finally over. Ethan had finally decided to let me go. Even though the breakup wasn't my fault, I had never been his match. I had surrendered a long time ago. Chapter 2. My manager had just warned me not to clash with Chloe again when Chloe deliberately invited me to walk the red carpet with her. The Sinclair heir's new love and old love standing side by side was enough to dominate headlines without a single word spoken. I knew she meant to humiliate me in every possible way. Not only because she was now Ethan's girlfriend, but because we were wearing gowns from the same brand that night. Hers was the latest collection. Mine was last year's. I could already imagine the mockery online, her fans and my haters tearing me apart, laughing at how cheap I looked. But it didn't matter. I had never wanted to compete with her over clothes. And I certainly didn't expect Ethan to ever come back to me. If she wanted to be the flower, I would be the leaf beneath her. Apparently, that still wasn't enough. Lowering her voice, Chloe asked, Anna, do you know Ethan will be here tonight? I didn't. From the day we broke up, everything between Ethan and me had been cut clean. And yet, just hearing his name threw my steps off for a second. She noticed. A trace of mockery curved her lips. Don't overthink it. He's here for me. It has nothing to do with you. I know. Even though the Sinclairs practically owned half the industry, Ethan had never attended entertainment events before today. Not even when we were at our closest. Not even for me. Then she added, Ethan and I are getting married soon. I nodded and smiled at her sincerely. I wish you happiness. Maybe I looked too submissive tonight. Maybe she was eager to find him. As soon as the red carpet ended, she left without another glance. I posed for photos, answered a few questions. The reporters were strangely tactful. No one mentioned Ethan. Our relationship back then had been intense, but the ending was ugly. Ethan himself only found out he had been dumped through trending news. That interview was supposed to be about the progress of our relationship. But facing the cameras, I had only said 5 words. We broke up. No warning. No explanation. Chapter 3. Ethan called me later. There was no explanation. No apology. He didn't even ask why. He only asked one thing. Are you sure? I gave a soft hum in response. He was silent for a second, then hung up. I had thought he would be angry. After all, he had grown up being adored, never contradicted by anyone. And yet, I was the one who dumped him, and he wasn't even the first to know. Ethan got dumped was trending for 3 days. He never had it taken down. My agency, afraid of offending the Sinclair family, tried to pull it. It disappeared for less than a minute before climbing right back up. That wasn't Ethan losing face. That was his warning. And sure enough, from that point on, my career became a series of obstacles. Not until 6 years had passed. Not until his anger faded. Not until he and Chloe were about to get married. The memories came flooding back, leaving my thoughts unsteady. The host called my name twice before I finally snapped out of it. Applause thundered around me. Through the gaps, I glanced toward the front row. Chloe was sitting there. The seat beside her was empty. There was no name card, but everyone knew. That was Ethan's place. He hadn't arrived yet. Good. It spared me a lot of awkwardness. But when I stepped onto the stage and looked up to begin my acceptance speech, he was already there, sitting perfectly upright in his seat. It had been years. His presence was colder, steadier than before. When our eyes met, he looked at me as if I were a stranger, not a trace of emotion in his gaze. I steadied myself and began to speak. Chapter 4. Halfway through my speech, a sudden ripple spread through the crowd. Calling it whispering would be generous. People were clearly trying to hold back, but the gossip was too shocking. Voices rose despite themselves. A hater had leaked a video of me from years ago, walking around with a visibly pregnant belly. It was 6 years ago, not long after Ethan and I broke up. I had planned to bury myself in work, but before joining the cast, I found out I was pregnant. I dropped out of the project and disappeared from the public eye for a full year. The video came from the security cameras in the complex where I used to live. I couldn't even remember where I had been going that day. I wasn't wearing a mask. My face was captured clearly. As I stepped off the stage with the trophy, my manager and assistant rushed over, trying to shield me and get me out. It was too late. The reporters had already swarmed in. Cameras and microphones were shoved inches from my face. Everyone asked the same question. Anna, who is the father of the child? I was trapped in the crowd, unable to move. Not far away, no one dared approach Ethan. If he and I were still together, maybe they would have treated me with a little restraint. I saw the shock on his face. His fingers on the armrest had clenched so tightly they'd gone white. He knew who the father was. That was why, for the first time, the man who was always composed and distant completely lost his composure in public. I didn't answer the reporters directly. I only smiled and denied it. I don't have a child. Chapter 5. I doubted there had ever been a Best Actress who left an awards ceremony as miserably as I did. My gown was stained from being stepped on. One of my earrings was gone in the chaos. A swarm of reporters chased after me. It looked less like a victory exit and more like a desperate escape. My manager and assistant were both shaken. It wasn't until we were in the car that they finally dared to ask. What's going on? You had a child? With Ethan? Where is the baby now? There were too many questions. I gave a bitter smile, not sure which one to answer first. They weren't the people who had been with me from the beginning. Everything about Ethan and me, they had learned from the internet or hearsay. The year I disappeared from public view, people first thought I had been blacklisted. When I came back, they said I must have been too heartbroken and gone away to heal. What really happened that year, no one in the industry knew. My current manager and assistant didn't know either. So when they saw that video today, they assumed the same thing as everyone else, that I had gone to have a child. 1 year. Perfect timing. My manager even sounded a little excited. If Ethan comes back for the kid, take this chance and get back together with him. You'll be winning awards non-stop after that. I shook my head. She froze for a second, then nearly shot up in her seat. You're not planning to offend him again, are you? How would I dare? What I meant was simple. There was no child. There had been one. I just didn't keep it. She didn't quite believe me. The timing was too perfect. She was about to press further when my assistant handed her a phone. "Sister Coco, look. More smear pieces?" She snatched the phone, then her expression shifted. What's going on?" There wasn't a single negative trending topic about me. Not even an ugly screenshot. And yet, only moments ago, I had left the venue in absolute disgrace. It was Ethan's doing. Making someone's life difficult was easy for him. Protecting someone was just as easy. My manager rubbed her temples. "You really didn't keep the child? Then how are you going to explain this to Ethan?" Why would I explain anything to him? He didn't love me. And he and Chloe were about to get married. Chapter 6. I knew Ethan would come looking for me. The video had surfaced too suddenly, and it involved a child. There was no way he wouldn't want answers. I just didn't expect him to come so fast. By the time I reached my building, he was already waiting downstairs. Through the night, his tall figure looked exactly the same as it had 6 years ago. Back then, when he saw me, he would open his arms and wait for me to run into them. Now he simply stood there, cold and distant, impossible to approach. My manager was uneasy. When I got out of the car, she tugged on my sleeve. I turned back and smiled. "It's fine. If he wanted to kill someone, he wouldn't need to do it himself." "True." She sighed, then reminded me to talk things through with him. "You've survived all the hard years. It's all going to be better from now on. Don't make your life harder again, okay?" I smiled and nodded. Only after they left did I walk toward Ethan. My steps were calm, as if I were going to meet an old friend. Only I knew that in the last 2 steps before reaching him, my heart still sped up despite myself. After all, I had once loved him deeply. So deeply that during the earthquake, when he left me without hesitation to go find Chloe, I nearly lost the will to live. Ethan knew exactly why I had broken up with him. But afterward, he never offered a single explanation. Because I had publicly announced the breakup and embarrassed him, he let me suffer cold treatment and ridicule in the industry for years. What could I do? He had money. He had power. Even now, knowing who was in the wrong, I was still the one who spoke first. "Mr. Sinclair." He frowned slightly, his voice low. "I'm used to you calling me by my name." I had called his name countless times before. "Ethan, I'm about to wrap up. Want to grab dinner?" "Ethan, you've been away for a week. When are you coming back?" "Ethan, I miss you." 6 years had passed, yet the way I used to say his name, the way I used to cling to him and confess my longing, was still painfully clear. A trace of regret surfaced where it didn't belong. I smiled and shook my head. "Miss Chloe said you're getting married. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to call you by your name anymore." "Congratulations." He said, "Do you really think I can still get married now?" Even if Chloe was willing. Even if she was willing to become a stepmother overnight. The Sinclair family cared about appearances. They would never agree. I had ruined his plans again. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. He looked at me. "Where is the child?" Chapter 7. Ethan finally brought up the real subject of the night. The child who had suddenly been exposed, yet never once seen. There was a trace of irritation in his voice now, heavier than before. "Why didn't you tell me when you found out you were pregnant?" "Because at first, I didn't know either. And by the time I did, we were already over. I didn't want the child to affect you and Miss Chloe." He let out a cold laugh. "You hid it for 6 years. And it still came out. Did it really affect anything less?" "I'm sorry." I didn't know what else to say. Once, not long after Ethan and I got together, someone warned me that he liked girls who were well behaved. But I was never good at pretending. Back then, I was young. I thought love meant forever. Who can pretend for a lifetime? So in front of Ethan, I pouted. I sulked. I threw small tantrums. He wasn't good at comforting people, but he never held it against me either. Usually, once I was done being upset, it passed. I was vivid. I was intense. Not like the woman Ethan was seeing now, smooth, restrained, carefully controlled. He asked again, "Where is the child?" There is no child. From the moment I found out, I never planned to keep it. A man who didn't love me wouldn't love the child I bore. And I never wanted to be a single mother. So I ended the pregnancy. Something flared in Ethan's eyes, tearing through that dark, still surface at last. For the first time, I saw his emotions break through. He actually cared about the child who was never born. That was something I had never expected. Did he care about his blood? Or had he, even once, truly loved me? Chapter 8. Ethan was angry. Even after 6 years, his habit hadn't changed. Whenever he was angry, he closed his eyes. I looked at him, at a loss. I didn't understand what he was angry about. If anything, I should have been the one furious. Before we broke up, Ethan and I had each carved out 5 days from our schedules and gone on a trip together. We were happy. Then he told Chloe our itinerary, and the next day, she followed us. I was unhappy about it. But Chloe said their families were old friends, that she and Ethan had grown up together like siblings. And Ethan didn't ask her to leave. So I endured it. Then, the next day, an earthquake hit. I still remember tumbling down the stairs as we tried to run. My thigh was bruised. My ankle was badly twisted. Worst of all, I hit my head. My vision blurred. At first, Ethan wanted to carry me out. Then he heard Chloe crying. "Ethan. Ethan, please save me. Ethan, where are you? Help." He looked at me. Then he turned and went to her. He left me there. It was as if it didn't matter whether I could get out. As if it didn't matter whether I would die there. Later, when I announced the breakup in public instead of telling him first, he never explained. Not once. Not why he had done it. And now, today, he asked me, "Do you want to hear my explanation?" I froze. That earthquake had become my nightmare. Every time I thought of it, my chest tightened. My breathing grew shallow. 2 years ago, I acted in a drama with an earthquake scene. The director praised me endlessly, said he had never seen anyone portray that kind of fear so naturally. But I wasn't acting. I was terrified. It took me a long time to recover from it. That night, I dreamed of the past. I dreamed of being left behind by Ethan again. I woke drenched in cold sweat. My mind was awake, but my body wouldn't move. The next morning, my assistant found me unresponsive and rushed me to the hospital. Chapter 9. Whether before or after I announced the breakup in public, I had never once asked Ethan for an explanation. Because I believed actions spoke louder than words. At the edge of life and death, the person he chose to save was Chloe. No matter how much he claimed to love me, it meant nothing. Still, I didn't want to be trapped in nightmares forever. Since he brought it up himself, I decided to listen. Ethan said her family originally had 2 children. Chloe had an older brother. He and Ethan had been best friends since childhood. When they were 13, the 2 of them sneaked out to play and were caught by someone with bad intentions. Someone tried to kidnap Ethan. The 2 boys ran for their lives, doing everything they could to escape. In the end, only Ethan made it back. "We split up to draw them apart," he said. Before we did, her brother told me that if he didn't make it, I was to take care of his parents and Chloe. So when life and death were on the line, and he heard Chloe cry out for her brother, he went to her. Because he didn't want his best friend to die in vain. Because he didn't want to break his promise. Friendship in adolescence is the purest kind. Especially when that friend died because of you. Those old memories were the deepest wound in Ethan's heart. He had avoided talking about them before. That was understandable. But I still asked, what if I had died that day? He owed her family. So he made amends. That was only right. But I didn't owe them anything. Why was I the one who had to pay the price? Why did I have to pay with my life? Ethan didn't answer. Maybe he didn't feel like responding to a hypothetical question. After all, I was alive. And causing him trouble. I didn't press further. I only said, don't worry. I really didn't secretly give birth to a child. I don't know who leaked the video, and I definitely didn't want it exposed. He looked at me. Something like sadness flickered through his eyes. Then, very calmly, he confronted me. I asked a doctor. With that body shape, even if you weren't showing, you'd be over 5 months. If you were, at least 4. So? Anna, you kept the child, didn't you? You resented me for leaving you, so you hid it all these years. And now you're denying it on purpose. Is that it? Chapter 10. No. The younger you are, the prouder you tend to be. I loved Ethan deeply. But I loved myself just as much. From the moment he left me to go to Chloe, it was already decided. There would be nothing between us. Even if he explained now. Even if I understood. That didn't mean I accepted it. But something was wrong with him tonight. A man who was usually decisive kept asking the same question over and over. As if he wouldn't stop until I admitted I had kept the child. I had no choice but to tell him the truth. I didn't terminate the pregnancy right away because I was sick. I found out I was pregnant and ill at the same time. Because of the treatment, I had to delay the procedure. The medication made me gain weight. I looked more pregnant than I actually was. In that year, I lost my relationship. I lost my job. I got sick. I had an abortion. And I lost my mother. No one was more reliable than my mom. No one loved me more than she did. So when I found out I was pregnant and ill, I called her. She rushed over from home to take care of me, staying by my side night after night. I was too caught up in my own emotions to notice her growing thinner, her face growing paler. The day I was discharged, she was happy, ready to take me home. We had just stepped out of the elevator when she collapsed in front of me. Those few seconds are blank. Even now, I can't remember what I was thinking. Was I too scared? Or was my mind too slow to react after being sick? Ethan. I finally called his name again. He answered softly. I understand your guilt toward her brother, I said. So I don't blame you for what happened back then. And then, he asked. It was not the question I expected. I looked up at him, confused. And then what? Anna, he said, shouldn't we start over? Chapter 11. I was too stunned by Ethan's suggestion to get back together to say anything. People in power don't lower their heads easily. Someone as proud as him, to ask that, he must have meant it. But I didn't understand. If he had truly cared about me all these years, why had he never come looking for me? Why had he allowed others to make things so difficult for me? I disappeared from the public eye for an entire year. Had he really not worried at all? He said, I actually had someone look for you. But what they brought back was that you had a new boyfriend. It was the day my mother came, not long after I broke up with him. Travel from her hometown wasn't convenient, so I asked a cousin to drive her over. That must have been when his people saw us and misunderstood. Ethan was irritated. You dumped me in public and moved on that fast. Was I not allowed to be angry? So you had people send me trash scripts and cut off all my endorsements. Is that it? He froze. Cut off all your endorsements? So those things weren't done by him. More precisely, they were done by Chloe in his name. But did I really believe that someone as sharp as him noticed nothing? He had simply been angry and allowed others to vent on his behalf. Ethan, you lost your best friend. You were devastated. But do you know that when my mother died, I was devastated too? More so than you. At my lowest, I stood on the rooftop, looked up at the night sky, and treated the stars as my mother. I asked if they could take me with them. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. The medication had made me gain weight. Then grief made me lose it just as fast. So when I returned to the industry, I looked frighteningly thin. My manager didn't even want me at first. I begged her. I promised I would behave. Only then did she reluctantly take me on. Later, once she got to know me, she grew attached. That was why she always defended me. That Chloe just relies on her background. She wants everything. If she can't get it, she steals it. She shouldn't be an actress. She should be a bandit. When you were dating Ethan, the Sinclairs said they didn't like actresses. So why is Chloe showing up everywhere now and they say nothing? Your acting blows hers out of the water. Anyone with eyes can see that. Ethan is so rich. Why doesn't he go get his eyes checked? Of course, all of that was said behind their backs. In front of them, it was always Mr. Sinclair this, Miss Chloe that, polite to the point of excess. What else could we do? We were small. They were untouchable. Chapter 12. I didn't accept Ethan's offer to get back together. Even though I knew that once we reconciled, my career would become a smooth road, and awards would come easily. I still didn't want to. Because I knew the Sinclairs didn't like me. When Ethan and I were still deeply in love, his mother had come to see me. She told me I was beautiful, that my acting was good, that I would become famous sooner or later. But the Sinclair family would never allow Ethan to marry an actress. So she advised me to end things early. Less pain that way. She even promised me opportunities if I agreed to break up with him. I refused. Back then, I believed that as long as Ethan and I were firm enough, we could walk through life together. I never imagined it would end so badly. Maybe Ethan hadn't personally made things difficult for me over the years. But Chloe did. And the Sinclair elders did. And Ethan's friends did. Every one of them was someone I couldn't afford to offend. I didn't want to repeat the same nightmare. So when Ethan asked for my answer, I told him I never thought about getting back together with you. Not before. Not now. No. He said, Chloe and I are settled. The families have spoken. She's leaving the country today. I was surprised. Then I realized this was exactly his style. He was decisive with everyone. Only with me did he hesitate. Like the phone call after I announced the breakup. He had been waiting for me to lower my head. Like now. He didn't turn and leave. He was waiting for me to soften. But I truly didn't love him anymore. Still, I didn't dare leave first. The gap in power was too wide. If he insisted, I would only have two choices. Compromise. Or quit the industry and leave the city. I stood there, waiting for his final verdict. But after a long silence, what he asked was, during the year you disappeared, you called me twice, didn't you? Chapter 13. The first call was on the day I terminated the pregnancy. Rationally, I knew I was doing the right thing. But emotionally, I hadn't fully let go of Ethan yet. When I was sad. When I felt wronged. I still thought of him without meaning to. But the call was answered by Chloe. She told me to know my place and stop clinging to Ethan. Otherwise, I wouldn't just disappear from the industry. I would disappear from the world. I didn't argue. I simply hung up. Of course, Chloe never told Ethan that I had called. The second call was on the day my mother died. It felt like the world had gone dark, like I had fallen into some black hole I couldn't climb out of. I wanted someone to save me. So, pathetically, I thought of Ethan again. But that call was never answered. Too much time had passed. When those two calls were brought up again, I still remembered why I had made them, but the emotions were no longer the same. The darkness in my world had already lifted. I had saved myself. Ethan asked, if I had answered even one of those calls, would we still be together? Maybe. Maybe he would have come to find me and we would have reconciled. Or maybe he would have scolded me and things would have gotten even worse. Either way, it was the past. Ethan, we should both move forward. He shook his head. I want to look back. Back then, everyone believed that I was with him for his connections. Deep down, Ethan had probably thought the same. Until I announced the breakup in public. Until my career fell apart and I still didn't go back to him. Until he found out we had once had a child. Until he discovered those 2 call records. Only then did Ethan finally realize that I had loved him purely. That I had wanted a home with him. That I had wanted a child with him. Love that arrives too late is always the hardest to accept. Even for Ethan, it left a sense of unfinished regret. Anna, can we start over? I shook my head. Because I didn't love him anymore. Ethan, someday, someone will love you more than I did. Chapter 14. The leaked pregnancy video didn't bring me any negative backlash. If anything, people praised me for being uncompromising, for having the backbone to even terminate Ethan's child. After that, more and more scripts came to me. And better ones. After Chloe left the industry and went abroad, the endorsements she had taken from me returned one by one. Even a few I had never been able to reach before came knocking. My manager asked if I wanted to take them. I raised a brow and smiled. Why are you asking me? Don't you decide? Oh, please, she snapped, giving me a light smack. If it were anyone else, I'd have decided already. But these, do you really not know who sent them? Ethan. And the fact that he hadn't said a word beforehand probably meant he wanted us to think the offers came on their own. But neither my manager nor I were new. And we certainly weren't stupid. Endorsements like these weren't just about ability. They were about connections. She advised me, why not just take them? He's not saying anything. We can pretend we don't know. It'll benefit you a lot. I don't want to owe him. About what happened back then, you don't blame him anymore, but he does owe you. This isn't you owing him. At most, it's him trying to make it up to you. I don't want his compensation either. You. She rolled her eyes in frustration. You're hopeless. I'm done with you. Chapter 15. After my manager left, I called Ethan. He picked up even faster than he used to when we were together. But after the line connected, he didn't speak first. Ethan, I said. What is it? He asked. Stop pulling strings for me. I was direct. There was no way he could pretend not to understand. He was silent for 2 seconds before replying, those things were always meant to be yours. If, over the past few years, he hadn't allowed the people around him to make things difficult for me, if he hadn't indulged Chloe in taking what was mine, then yes, I would have won Best Actress long ago, with honors, with endorsements following naturally. Only then did I think to ask him, why did I get the award this time? If he had never personally suppressed me, then with Chloe's personality, how could she suddenly let me go? He said, someone close to me spoke to the organizers and asked them to be fair. Your friend. Do I know them? I had met most of the people he was close to back when we were dating. He suddenly grew evasive, refusing to say who it was. I let it go. Then help me pass along my thanks. Okay. After hanging up, I called my manager and asked her to check with the organizers who had helped behind the scenes. She sounded surprised. So it wasn't them showing mercy after all? All right, I'll ask. Not long after, she called me back. The answer caught me off guard. It was Ethan's mother. I had always assumed that when she came to persuade me to break up with Ethan, everything she said had been polite lies. I never expected that she genuinely recognized my acting. And I had once, unfairly, suspected her of being one of the people making things difficult for me. Chapter 16. Perhaps the organizers informed her as well, because that evening, I received a call from her. Her voice was gentle, even smiling. Congratulations. Thank you. No need to thank me. If it weren't for Ethan, you would have won long ago. He never stopped me from winning. I know. At first, I thought he had been the one suppressing you. I even thought, what kind of man punishes a woman for years just because she broke up with him? I couldn't stand it. So I asked him. He said he didn't do it. Then it must have been Chloe. You see, even his mother understood immediately. I didn't believe that all these years, with me never winning anything, Ethan had noticed nothing. She sighed softly. Her family only has Chloe left. And because we owe them so much, everyone's been far too indulgent with her. Ethan said she's gone abroad. Yes. We sent her out to toughen up. The family will be hers one day. She can't keep fooling around in the entertainment industry. She paused, then added, as if worried she'd misspoken, I don't mean you when I say fooling around. I know. If she hadn't approved of me, she wouldn't have gone to the organizers to demand fairness. Of course, I also understood that the Sinclairs didn't like actresses. Letting me win Best Actress was also a way to push Chloe out of the industry sooner. No one expected, however, that the biggest sensation that night wouldn't be my win, but the leaked video. She said, you were right not to keep the child. The road ahead is long and wide. I hope you fly higher. She had been through it. She was inside the system. She understood better than anyone what deep waters, in a powerful family, truly meant. A secretly born child wouldn't tie Ethan down. It wouldn't control the Sinclair family. But it might very well bind me, become a permanent stain on my life. Only with absolute freedom could I go further. My throat tightened. Thank you. Chapter 17. With all obstacles gone, my career finally became smooth. The following year, I stood on the stage again. I thanked the company. I thanked the director. I thanked many, many people. I thanked them for the opportunities they had given me over the past 10 years, for allowing me to stand here today. Some applauded. Some were in tears. I looked toward the front row. Ethan wasn't there. Before the ceremony, the organizers had casually asked my manager several times whether Ethan would attend. She played dumb and brushed them off each time. In truth, she had asked me. And I had told her, Ethan and I probably won't be in contact anymore. He had family responsibilities on his shoulders. And I was no longer young and reckless. The courage to love without restraint had faded with age and experience. It was just that the date itself was too coincidental. It was the 10th anniversary of the day Ethan and I met. 10 years ago, we met and fell in love. 10 years later, we remained in each other's contact lists, but would never reach out again. As I stepped off the stage, someone handed me a bouquet. There was a card on it. A single line, no signature. You will have many brilliant decades ahead. 10 years. It was Ethan. He remembered, too. I suddenly sensed something and looked up toward the back. In the corner where the light didn't reach, Ethan was sitting. The moment I looked over, he looked back. Across rows of people, we shared a small, distant smile. By now, Ethan had probably made peace with what we once were. And even if he hadn't, he would never ask me to come back. All he wanted now was for me to fly farther. And I would move forward, without fear.